I,
of the
I
kid.
Josie's kid.
Yeah.
I think it's.
Because he's just smiling.
I believe it's heavily implied that he is, but again, this is one of those things that is never articulated by anybody. Everybody is. I love. It felt very French to me, like a French comedy when they're in the delivery room and Vincent is all happy and Josie's coddling the kid, and meanwhile everybody else is standing in the background exchanging these like, oh, you got to be kidding looks. It's really funny actually, but I think Omar is the father. I'll stick with that with certainty. Yeah.
Either he thinks it's really funny, or
Yeah.
I mean, he's glowing though. He's glowing. Is Omar friends with Vincent?
Well, here's the thing. They work at the restaurant together. That's how they know each other.
Yeah. And like, remember when she comes in and Omar just starts talking to her? I'm like, is this a family friend? Like, it's just such a weirdo gonzo moment.
Yeah. Again, it's one of those like little nuanced things kind of though too, even though it seems like, actually it's like I say with certainty, but at the same time it's like, again, like anything else in this movie, it's like you're not being told. So it is another frustrating enigma kind of potentially there.
Now,
Do you want to draw that conclusion based on the evidence, or do you want to? Yeah, it's kind of this movie. Yeah.
Such a random scene. Now, what do you think were the 9 bullet points that she had for her dad?
Oh God.
So she learns that her dad is dying,
Mm-hmm.
and she says that she's going to come visit him, and this is before 7 p.m. And then it turns out sometime between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. he hangs himself.
Well, the way the warden says it is, it appears he fashioned a noose out of a sheet. So again, it almost seems like Verhoeven's like, oh, we're not going to say for sure definitively here. But anyway, yeah.
So what are the 9 bullet points?
Oh boy.
This is tough.
I mean, I think 2 of them would be F you, because that's what she yelled at the TV when she saw his parole was denied.
Do you know what I like about her? I sorry to interrupt.
No, please, because I was gonna drown there anyway.
I should have just let you do it. That'd have been great.
Yeah, hang myself. Yeah.
Have you ever listened to some of the early MFF pods? And when I put John Levengood on the spot, he's gotten much better at it. But like from episodes 1 to 100, I'd put him on the spot on purpose, and he'd be like, ah! We just love it. So, and I also think something's interesting because when she's talking to the warden, she says, I let him have too much power. I've been fleeing him and fearing him. He's like, yeah, okay, and he walks away. At the scene at the hospital, she's telling the doctor nurse, one of the two, that her best friend Anna breastfed her son. Mm-hmm. And the lady just gets up and leaves. Like, she's like, oh, I gotta go. So I feel like she does try to open herself up to people, and they don't really ever want to hear it. Have you noticed that?
There's something else interesting, Mark. The scene where at the Christmas party, her mother has a stroke and goes to the hospital, and she's in the hospital next to her mother who's non-responsive, and she's saying all of this stuff like, oh, is this just another act from you? Kind of. It's like, does she sincerely believe that, or is that a defense mechanism? Is she trying to project or whatever? Is all this stuff that's accumulated from her past, from her childhood, which was obviously traumatic, and it's weird. It's just it's just weird to sit and listen to. It's fascinating to watch it, but I kept thinking to myself, okay, to what end? To what end is she doing this? And I could conceivably see a person like offhandedly saying these things, but maybe this is a reflection of her damaged upbringing, kind of how she aided her father in something she knew was horrible, but wasn't old enough to process. And
you're 10 years old.
Is it just all these scars like accumulating on top of each other over time emotionally to the point where this is who I am and this is what's normal to me, is to say these things and to be very offhand about things and just kind of like, okay, if you don't like it, tough. Yeah.
And I like that her mom says to her, she's like, you can be cruel when she doesn't know people.
Yeah.
But I guess she does. Wait, it's the girlfriend. She does put a toothpick in her food.
Oh my God, yeah.
That was mean.
That really was. I was kind of like, yeah, that wasn't nice.
And so but I like that she has those moments, but then she also has moments where she's justifiably annoyed. It's just another credit to the character. And that dinner party. So somehow you and I get invited, right?
Yeah.
We're there. That'd be so uncomfortable, wouldn't it?
You know, it was much more uncomfortable than that episode of The Office where Michael and Jan invited half the office over, and it was just like so cringy. Yeah.
Their plasma screen.
Yeah, I installed the wall mount on this one myself. Yeah.
3-inch TV.
Yeah.
But like, sorry. Oh, go for it.
No. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, when she's like, we're engaged, and Michelle starts laughing, and then she calls her grotesque.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you're just sitting around watching everything. It's just like, oh my gosh. And then she invites, it's just such a, yeah, and then she goes and meets the yoga instructor at the place.
Oh yeah, which is totally, I was like sitting there kind of like sinking into my seat, like, okay, what's she going to do that's going to be cringeworthy? What kind of impression is she going to make on this person? Yeah.
And it seemed pleasant enough.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. That's what I like. This movie just, it kind of draws you in, and you just sort of follow her around to various interactions. And yeah. I love it. I like, and isn't this amazing that Verhoeven, do you think is Verhoeven subtle? Or is his theme subtle? Or is like, cause his direction's not always subtle, but his themes are subtle? Mm-hmm. Like but then I found like this one's a little bit more subtle, but everything's sort of spoken. It's a very interesting Verhoeven movie is what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, you know, Mark, I'll tell you a brief anecdote about my relationship with Robocop.
Oh, it's right.
Well, here's the thing. For years, and I mean years, I avoided that movie because I just looked at the poster and I thought, this is just some dumb 80s action movie. I mean, granted, the poster looks great, you know, with Robocop, you know, stepping out of the police car. But, you know, I just avoided it thinking, oh, what could that movie possibly have to offer me? Because it just looks like another cheesy 80s thing. So I finally get around to watching it, and I'm like, literally my mind is exploding watching this movie because to your point, Verhoeven is like a sledgehammer with his style, I think. You know, he has a very distinctive style. He has a very distinctive way of shooting action, literally shooting action sometimes. And, you know, but then after you watch the movie or while you're watching the movie, wait a second, there's all this satirical stuff that's bubbling to the surface too. Like even in Starship Troopers, there's this element of comedy and satire going on that I think a lot of people get kind of up in arms with because it's like, oh, he's advocating fascism or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, that's clever because he's essentially taking something that in the 1950s would be a total cheesy guy in a rubber suit B movie, and he's turning it into something else for kind of our times. So to answer your question, I think he's very overt, but subtlety rises from his overtness, maybe. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. He kind of sneaks. He walks a line, doesn't he? This is this movie definitely walks a tightrope, and I feel like that's where he does his best work. Like Hollow Man, there's no tightrope. Mm-hmm. Hollow Man is just walking on concrete, being gross.
Walked across concrete, yeah.
There's no, like, it has a safety net, and they're attached to a rig, and that's why it's my least favorite of his. And you know what's interesting? He said Hollow Man could have been directed by 30 different people.
Did he have did he have positive feelings about that film? Because you're right, I feel like it's one of the more soulless movies that he's made, actually.
Yeah, he just said anybody could have done it.
Like it was a paycheck thing, kind of.
Yeah, because he needed a gig, man. He had like Showgirls and Starship Troopers. They weren't gigantic hits.
I mean, it's now people love them, but yeah, back at the time, yeah.
Yes. So I mean, people kind of that's his black sheep of all his films, I would say. But yeah, he just said anybody could direct it. And do you think anybody could have directed this movie?
Oh, good God, no. And you know, Mark, I think about what you said about how I am not surprised by him having the audacity, though he probably didn't think it was audacity, to bring this to Hollywood, to bring this to America. Because in Paul Verhoeven's mind, he's like, oh my God, this is an awesome script. what actress would not want to play this character? Because it's a strong character. It's a mysterious character. It's a character who takes charge of things, but who's also very flawed and goes through a lot of emotions. Hollywood would neuter the shit out of Elle. Give it a happy ending, give the catharsis of revenge that we're so accustomed to seeing, dumb down the characters and their relationships. You get an inferior product once you got the American producers involved. And granted, I'm being I'm generalizing here, but I think it would have been a totally different project. But I admire Verhoeven's chutzpah in bringing it to Hollywood, even if it maybe was an elaborate joke on his part. Because I don't think, I think you put it with a different director, and I think a producer would probably go with a less risk-averse director, and they would do a lot of rewrites on it. So I'm glad he took it to France.
This movie does not make a moral point.
And I think that's where a lot of people would probably run into, people would run into problems with it, because it's like, oh, well, what are you saying with this movie? It's like, well, where's the rampage? Where's the Ms. 45 kind of rampage at the end? Not that there's anything wrong with Ms. 45. I love that movie, but it's very defiant of the conventions that we're accustomed to within the ostensible subgenre that this film belongs to. That's why I was like, I was pleasant, it's an unpleasant film to watch in a lot of ways, but I was just pleasantly surprised by the fact that he wasn't adhering to convention.
What's really interesting, and I just want to get your thoughts about this. The
Sure.
New Yorker, God bless them, they were like, they kind of wrote a movie about this, and they're saying that, like, Elle is no exploration of a woman's life or psyche, but a macho fantasy adorned with the trappings of liberation.
What movie were they watching?
Yeah, exactly. It made me, what's interesting is I don't like being in an echo chamber. So if I see a top critic has a negative review of something I love, I want to read it.
Oh, me too.
I actively fight sometimes to get through the reviews. Because maybe there's some things I'm missing. Maybe my latitudes of rejection or acceptance are too high and I need to recalibrate. But reading this review, and this is an opinion that this person has. So I guess technically there is no right or wrong.
Yeah.
But after reading the review, I kind of said, you're wrong. It didn't,
oh, wow.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I didn't get that vibe. And I appreciate that they're doing that, but it just seems very, I don't know, it's just calling, like, it just, I don't see it as a macho fantasy. This movie is, but see, I can't speak on her situation, Michelle's situation. Right. I can't speak to what she went through. Right. But is there any macho fantasy to this movie?
Mark, I go back to the hypothetical Elle that was never made in Hollywood. I think if they turned it into a Hollywood movie, that's what it would turn into. I don't see Michelle as losing any of her femininity or anything like that. Actually, I think maybe what's kind of daunting about this film is how granted, I am a white male to, saying this, but I think the fact that she really takes charge of her sexuality in certain scenes is very interesting, because it almost brings up, there are moments where I was like, is this like another Straw Dog scenario where the eternal controversy over whether the female character enjoyed being violated by a male character? Because there's been that controversy surrounding that film for years, and there's that scene in the basement of Patrick's house where he's like, it's very strange, where he's showing her the heater. So insert some metaphors here about rising tension or passion or whatever you want to call what's going on with these characters. I think she kind of rebuffs him down there, because he's looking to get with her again, and she does something which is very, she basically he says,
I give you permission, right? Do it. Something like that. She's saying that, and he's like, no, that's not how it works. That's not how it works for me. So she's taken away his control of this fantasy, this sick fantasy that he has, by relinquishing him of his ability to forcibly take it from her. So it's a very, oh man, that scene is so, that's rough.
it's rough, but it's also, there's just so much going on there besides the obvious.